How's it going, Star Seekers? I hope you're all having a fine day and welcome back to the channel, where in today's review we're going to be taking a look at Fire Ungh's Quest. It's a point and click adventure puzzle game which sees you playing as Ungh, a simple but lovable caveman who you might have guessed is on a quest. This epic journey tasks you with solving many different puzzles as you guide Ungh across both time and space on his mission to obtain fire for his village. So let's get straight into this review and see what's what, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to be notified of future reviews. So Ungh's Quest released on the Switch a couple of days ago, and it's available for £12.99 on the UK eShop and $14.99 on the US eShop. The game begins with a short introductory cutscene, where we witness the ginger herd Ungh being tasked with tending to the village fire by a rather hip looking elder, but a moment later, our poor loincloth touting caveman nods off into a drooling slumber. As morning rolls round, the elder returns, only to find Ungh asleep on the job and the once blazing fire now nothing but a pile of smouldering ashes, and so Ungh is kicked out of the village and left to fend for himself in the barren wastelands on its outskirts. After getting a little peckish, Ungh finally manages to get himself a little snack, a rather scrumptious looking apple. However, on consuming said apple, Ungh starts to trip his balls off, and upon doing so discovers a possible solution to his fire problem, and so his journey begins. Now the game's first level sets you off on your journey with a few simple puzzles which introduce you to the game's controls. Having been ported from PC, like me, you'd probably expect to be controlling the on-screen cursor with the analog sticks, however the developers have chosen to do something a little different. Upon starting the game I noticed that there was no Pro Controller support and that the game only required the use of a single Joy-Con. This is because the game utilises gyro aiming, which if you're not familiar with involves physically moving and rotating the Joy-Con, which in turn moves the on-screen cursor. While the game does feature touchscreen controls when playing in handheld mode, in docked mode you can only use these gyro controls, and having never used them before, I actually found them very awkward to begin with. Now you are able to reduce the speed of the on-screen cursor, which did help me with my accuracy a little, and I did eventually get used to the gyro controls, but there are still moments which require you to click small objects, guide your cursor through these maze-like puzzles which operate similar to those steady hand games, or click several objects in quick succession, and if you've got a bit of a shaky grip, these areas can be rather frustrating. I also found that if I rotated my controller too far, the cursor would just go a bit apeshit and do its own thing, and so I frequently had to reset it by hitting the Joy-Con's trigger button. Now gameplay itself is pretty much your standard point and click affair, but unlike games like Broken Sword or Sam & Max where you transit back and forth between different locations collecting objects and speaking to NPCs, Ungh's Quest is instead split into 10 different levels which you progress through one at a time, and gameplay actually features no dialogue and is almost exclusively focused on solving puzzles. Now each level consists of multiple screens which you can navigate between by either using the thumbstick or by clicking the arrows in the bottom corners, and you generally end up going back and forth between screens interacting with different objects by tapping the A button. The puzzles themselves can be built into the environment or exist as standalone segments, and I found that all of them were actually very well done. There's some great variety to them, and I thought the developers got very creative with their implementation of them, with each level containing its own unique set of puzzles, all of which are generally very logical. Some of the highlights for me include a level where you had to transform Ungh into different creatures using these rotating stones, and another level where you get to travel back and forth through time, with your actions in the past affecting the environment in the future. Now overall, I did have a fun time working my way through the game's puzzles, however I didn't find any of them to be very challenging, which could be a good or bad thing depending on what kind of gameplay experience you're looking for, and there are two main gameplay mechanics which simplify things, making the solutions to puzzles much more obvious. Firstly, Ungh is only able to carry a single object at a time, which means you don't have an inventory system to deal with, and so don't get overwhelmed by an abundance of collectible items. And secondly, holding any of the other face buttons will highlight all interactable on-screen objects with a silver coin icon, meaning there's no possibility of confusing them with random bits of scenery. Simplifying the game like this does make it more accessible to a wider audience, however those looking for a real challenge to rack their brains with should consider looking elsewhere. Now to avoid spoilers, I'm not going to be getting into any more detail on the game's puzzles, but what I will say is that the game's levels can be tackled in bite-sized chunks, with each level taking me around 10 to 15 minutes to complete. This means that the game did feel rather short, and it will likely clock in at around 2 or 3 hours for the average player, but I still feel it's reasonably priced, as the puzzle variety offers an enjoyable experience from start to finish, and there's also the added challenge of finding gold coins hidden away in levels, which unlock various pieces of concept artwork for you to look at. Now when it comes to visuals, I thought the artwork in Ungh's Quest was fantastic. I loved the fact that everything was hand-drawn, and I enjoyed seeing all the weird and wonderful creatures that you encounter throughout the game, and each area felt unique with their own vibrant visuals which had a slight surrealist edge to them. On the audio side of things, we get some decent sound effects whenever we interact with an on-screen object, and the game's soundtrack, which mainly comprised of upbeat, quirky sounding tracks, was also very good, with one particular highlight for me being the time travel level, which transitioned between 3 variants of the same song depending on the time period you were in. Now as far as my own personal rating of the game goes, I'm going to be giving Fire Ungh's Quest 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, Ungh's Quest is an enjoyable point-and-click puzzle game which is accessible to most ages, and while its control scheme can be a little awkward and the game is a little short, if you're looking for a relaxing game to kill a few hours with, then I highly recommend giving it a go. And that's about it for this review of Ungh's Quest on the Nintendo Switch. Don't forget to hit that like button if it helped you out, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, and if you've not already done so then go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as I upload new Switch reviews and content every few days. For now though, I want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.